Hello there, I'm the biblical translator, and once again, I want to bring what's happening in everyday life and align it with the scriptures. So, today I wanted to talk about how men feel when they're not protected, because today's headlines was about protecting females, reducing violence against women, and domestic abuse protection orders. So, my first reaction was, who is protecting the men? And that is why I've written this story for you. If I was a man reading today's headlines, seeing that violence against women and girls is being called a national emergency, my first thought might be, what about me? Who will protect me? Because even as society recognises the suffering of many, there is a quiet ache in the human heart when you feel unseen, invisible, left to carry fear alone. I know what it feels like to live under the shadow, to be in a home where the one who should protect you sometimes brings harm. Every creak of the floor, every sound of a key in the lock becomes a signal of danger, and your body remembers before your mind does, flinching, tensing, calculating every word, every glance, every step to survive. The first instinct is not to call for help, it's to stay silent, to hide, because speaking out feels dangerous, because trust in man has been broken before. And yet in the midst of that fear, faith can remain. God can still be the refuge, the anchor, the shelter that does not fail. Like David hiding in the cave, pursued, betrayed, terrified, he declares, God is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. Psalm 18:2. The danger is real, the betrayal is real, but God's protection, his presence remains certain. And this is the paradox so many men in these situations feel. Their trust in God may be unwavering, even while their trust in human beings, friends, authorities, support systems is shaken. Because leaving abuse does not end the fear, the storm follows: homelessness, mental strain, isolation, the pressure to cope. Society often expects men to carry burdens alone, to be resilient, to appear strong until they break. And when support falls short, when the hands that should help fail to catch them, and when support falls short, when the hands that should help fail to catch them, it is that lonely wilderness, a desert where survival is uncertain and hope feels fragile. Like Abraham walking through the desert, guided only by God, not knowing what lies ahead, carrying a fear that seemed too heavy for one man alone. Even when new measures like domestic abuse protection orders are introduced, there is a cautious hope. On paper there is safety, there is law, there is order, but lived experience tells a different story. Fear persists in the space between promise and reality. Will the abuser respect the law? Will the cycle resume? Will someone hurt you again because human systems sometimes fail to protect? These are the thoughts that weigh heavily on men who have already learned the cost of misplaced trust. And so their faith remains not as a denial of danger, but as a refuge beyond the failings of man. As Psalm 91 reminds us, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. God's shelter is real, even when human protection is absent. The men reading the headlines, the men leaving abuse, the men navigating fear and uncertainty, they may distrust people, but they need not distrust God. The Bible is full of these moments of men who trusted God while facing human failure. Elijah ran to the wilderness, exhausted, alone, believing he had done all he could, only to find God's provision and care waiting for him. 1 Kings 19:4. Jeremiah called out at the betrayal of his own people, yet continued to lean on God's guidance. Trust in man may falter, trust in God need not. And that is the sacred tension: fear of humans, hope in God. Even when men feel abandoned by those around them, their prayers, their faith, their hope remain steadfast. Their vulnerability is real, their fear is valid, but their spiritual anchor holds. And from that place, they can take the next step. Seeking help, speaking their truth, reaching for the support that is available, even if imperfect, even if fragile. Because no one is meant to walk this journey alone, as Ecclesiastics remind us. Two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. That's Ecclesiastics 4:9-10. God may be the ultimate refuge, but humans are meant to be a part of the care, the hands that lift, the voices that listen, the arms that offer protection. And it is in that delicate interplay, faith in God, cautious trust in human help, that the healing begins. Even after leaving abuse, after homelessness, mental strain and disappointment, hope can emerge. Because the story does not end in the wilderness. The story continues with God as the constant, with steps forward taken cautiously, with the knowledge that while human may fail, God never does. And in that truth, there is courage to stand, to speak, to reach for support, to believe that life can be lived without constant fear. So to anyone listening, hidden in fear, left to navigate a world that has sometimes failed you, your story matters, your faith matters, your need for help matters. You are not weak for needing support. You are not alone. And even when trust in people falters, God remains faithful. Even in the shadows, He is your light. Even in the wilderness, He is your guide. Even when fear feels insurmountable, He is your refuge. Because the human need is simple: safety, care, compassion, and hope. And the spiritual truth is simple too: God is never absent. And when we hold both truths, the fragility of human systems and the steadfastness of God, we can walk forward step by step out of fear into hope and toward the life, the safety, and the healing that is possible. Even in the darkest valley, even when shame feels heavy, even when human fails to meet our needs, God is our rock. And knowing that, trusting that, allows us to lift our eyes, take our next steps, and know that we will never truly be alone. And I felt I needed to talk about that because recently I've seen so much news about protecting women. And because I work in domestic abuse, I noticed that far more abusive relationships are happening in same-sex relationships, men and men, where men might have thought that with the same gender, in love with the same gender, they would have felt safer and emotionally secure, but that hasn't been happening. Domestic abuse against men is on the rise, and sometimes it's women against men, and sometimes women are the perpetrators, sometimes men are, or spouses are the perpetrators. Who the perpetrator is, it doesn't matter. Violence should never be tolerated or administered, and regardless of your gender or your protective characteristics, you need to feel safe. So I hope this story, or I don't know what to call it really, but whatever I've just shared with you, I hope it's helpful. I hope it's helped lift your spirits. I hope it's landed where it's supposed to land. And I hope that you continue with your trust in God and continue on the path where you love yourself and you do what you need to do to protect yourself and keep yourself safe. And that's all for now. I shall speak to you again. Bye-bye.